I'm Andrew Simpson from Ether Automation, and in this video, we're going to continue on with our ERP video series for manufacturers who want an ERP system inside Zoho Creator. Now, in this video, we're going to set up a function that will automatically calculate the expected delivery date for an order that needs to go onto the assembly line. So we're going to look at all the work orders, we're going to calculate how long it's going to take to assemble them, what's the soonest we can start it, and then what's the soonest we can deliver it based on the average assembly time. Then we're going to set up some workflows to automatically trigger this function. So without further ado, let me share my screen and let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm inside Zoho Creator right now, and I'm looking at the work orders. And as we can see, we've got these two work orders. This one's completed, this one's in queue. There's no start date, there's no calculated assembly time, and there's no calculated delivery date. So what we're going to want to do is imagine that there are 10 work orders in queue. And we want to calculate when is going to be the start date or the calculated delivery date or the assembly time for this particular order. This function would probably run whenever a position in queue changes or maybe a new work order is created. We're going to figure that a little later. But we're going to start out by making a standalone function for this. So I'm going to click Edit this application, go to Workflow, and we're going to call this Calculate Delivery Date. Okay, so what do we want this function to do? Well, we're going to start by getting a work order. Then we want to calculate the assembly time. From there, we want to calculate how long until we can start. And then finally, we can calculate the delivery time. So that's what these three numbers are here for. So this is when we're expecting to start working on this. This is how long it's going to take. And this is going to be the expected date we can start shipping it. This is going to be a little more complicated than just these three things, but let's kind of jump into it now. So let's get the work order. Then we're going to calculate the assembly time. So how are we going to do this? Well, if you remember from a previous video, we have this thing where it is the average time to assemble the products. So we're able to use this number as well as the amounts to be assembled to figure out how long it's going to take. So to do this, we're going to loop through each. Before we loop through each, we want to set the time calculation. So within here, we are going to, this is what we're going to do. So we're going to get the product, start by getting the product. So this product, then we need to make sure that the product has an assembly time. So if there's no assembly time, we're going to use the ideal assembly time. So we need to make sure that all of these have an ideal time to assemble the product. And then finally, we can calculate the total time to assemble. And then the time to assemble equals the time to assemble plus this number. And so this will tell us how long the work order is going to take. So at the end of this, we're going to update the work order. So then we need to calculate how long until we can start. So to do that, we need to look at the start date, right? And so in this case, it's blank. So to do this, we'd want to grab all the work orders that are in queue and set a start date for all of them. So now that we have all the work orders in queue, sorted by their position in queue, we're going to go through each one and identify the start date. So I've thought about this a bit, and because we can hopefully assume that the start date is there and that on creation there's a calculated end time, that means this function would need to run when a sales order or when a work order is created. I'm going to put this in comments here. So we're going to assume all work orders except this one will have a start date and delivery time, which means we also want to go and ID is not equal to this one. So then we're going to say if there's none that we found, then we're going to do one thing. Otherwise, we're going to loop through them all. So we're going to set some start date in the past, and then for each we're going to go if work order dot start date is greater than this start date equals this, and we're going to do the same thing with the delivery date. So this will give us the latest delivery date, which means that the start date of the current order, or the current work order, would be the delivery date of the latest one. So that will be the earliest start date for this work order. And if there's none in the queue, we're going to say the start date is equal to today. All right, we can start it today kind of thing. So then we need to calculate the delivery time. Now, if you remember, this calculated assembly time is in minutes. So that means we can do some math. So this would give us the hours of work. And if you're unfamiliar with this, this is called a modulus divide. So we're dividing by 8. We're assuming there's 8 hours in a day. And this will give us the total days of work. And then we'd want to go so here would be our calculated delivery date, which is the start date for the work order. And then we add the number of days of work. So then we can go work order, calculated delivery dates equals this calculated delivery dates. Boom. So now let's run a quick test to see if this works at all. Says it ran successfully. Here's our calculated delivery date, which is 1 day in the future. All right, because it rounds up. So that works. And so now we just need to add a workflow that's going to invoke this function. So let's go ahead and do that. Form workflow on a work order. Let's create a new one on create. There we go. So now it calculates anytime the work order is created. But we also want to do this if the position in queue changes. There we go. So now whenever a work order is added or a work order is completed and therefore we change all the positions in the queue, the start date, the calculated assembly time, and the calculated delivery date will all be updated automatically so that you can get a good idea of when you can start shipping some of these products. Now, in the next video, now that we have all these functions created, we're going to start designing some of the workflows. So the work in progress reports, sales orders that are ready to be shipped. We're going to add some buttons for shipping. We're going to add some buttons to check the purchase orders to see if they've come in. We're going to make a burn down report. We're basically going to use this data that's in the system to start being able to look at the assembly line from a manager's point of view. I hope you found this video helpful. I will see you in the next video.